right, everybody, we are back on Play It Forward with James Strom, and we're going to be talking about Captain Fantastic and the Magic Piano. James Strom is artist, filmmaker, writer, director. James, thank you for being on the show.
Mr. Kasi, I appreciate you having me. It's more than a pleasure to be here.
Cool, man. I'm glad. It's fun. James, would you like to introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself before we get started in the proper?
Absolutely. My name is James Matthew Storm. I'm an independent guerrilla filmmaker out of San Diego, California. I've been a filmmaker virtually my entire life. I started making little epic backyard productions when I was about 6 years old. And I kept working to this day. And a lot of the crew that I work with today were friends and family that go all the way back to those original productions, those backyard movies when I was 6 years old.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. It's certainly a unique and cool and precious thing to have had that trajectory since you were six, and to know that love that you had and the passion and just kept growing and growing. And it's a really special thing. So I definitely can admire and honor that. I've kind of taken a circuitous path to filmmaking, but it's all good. So, James, we're going to be talking about Captain Fantastic and the Magic Piano, a fan film about Elton John, and I really enjoyed it. It's funky. It's really cool. It's got some very interesting themes and subtext to it. So, before we kind of get down to it, the first question of Play It Forward is, what was the inspiration in you to make this movie?
My main inspiration was that I wanted to make, for lack of a better words, a pure art film, a film that was artistic eye candy from beginning to end. And that didn't just include set design, but a costume design, of course, and makeup, and even more importantly, the props. And that was part of my inspiration for making this a silent film. There's no dialogue in this entire film. I let the music tell the story. It's also sort of a personal project for me. When I was a young filmmaker in film school, I had a lot of good friends, and we had seen an Elton John concert, and Elton John music had sort of ended up being sort of the soundtrack of our lives at that point in time. And we had actually conceptualized the idea for this movie well over 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it took us a long time thinking it through. And one of the most difficult aspects of the project was I knew that I wanted to create the magic piano, and that is the central prop of the film. And it's a piano that it lights up and it plays music and has a couple of tricks. And it took me a long time sort of to figure out how I was going to build that prop. But once technology sort of caught up with my vision, and I was able to figure out how to construct the magic piano, sort of the whole thing came together. So, like I said, a little over 2 decades later, we finally decided to just pull the trigger and create what we'd like to think is the ultimate Elton John fantasy film made by fans for fans.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it definitely looks like a labor and a project of love, and a tribute to Elton John. And one of the things that, for me, really caught my attention and awareness in the film is the one soundbite that you have of Elton John. Basically, it goes like this. Let me read it, see if it's the full thing. The only thing kept me going was knowing I'd be famous. It didn't happen till 53. I guess it was ambition. And then he says, no, it wasn't ambition. And that negation is what I really, found really fascinating. And that, in the context of the entire movie, with those themes of fame and excess and the people that surrounded him, and the sort of the riding of the coattails, and him and the music and the piano and the connection with the fans and the audience, and that being kind of the most important thing. But then in his life, how he fell back to knowing that he was going to have this magnificent connection with the world. And he says initially that that was ambition, and then he corrects himself and he says that no, it wasn't ambition. And what was that thing that it remains?
That is an excellent point, and I appreciate that this means you actually watched my film. To me, what I think it means is that, he originally starts off just trying to, off the cuff say, "Oh, it's ambition. I worked really hard for this." But, I think he thought about it for a moment and realized, no, pure raw talent has a lot to do with this. And, Elton John, has been called in many circles the Mozart of our era, and there's a reason for that. He's artistically a musical genius, and I think he knew that he recognized his artistic power deep inside, even though early on he was very self-conscious and sort of shy and unsure of himself. But we all know as artists that sometimes that is the greatest motivating factor, is the insecurity deep down inside. But you know what? Great artists, they fight through it anyway. They know they have some magic deep down inside of them, and they have to find a way to share it with the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I think, magic is what resonates with me. And, I think that magical connection that is able to transcend the individual insecurity and then create that union with the grander um awareness that's there is really, that quality of the magic piano. And the I don't know if you want to give it away, but some of the tricks that it has hidden in it.
Um, so you'd like me to speak directly about the magic piano?
No, no, no. Just that was, just saying like the moment of kind of the climax of the magic piano doing its magic, that's kind of the rising out of the ashes, that I
Yeah,
think is.
the big climax to the film, is the mighty phoenix bird rising out of the piano, and you're
Yeah.
right, it's very metaphorical, but it actually goes even deeper than that. Even the prop of the phoenix bird, it's the only time I pulled it out of the JS Company Productions archives, but it's actually a very important prop to a film I made back in 2001 called Beyond Nargidia, and both of these films actually have sort of a, for lack of a better word, a cinematic universe connection. And even the artwork on the piano is reflective of the film that we had made. And there's elements in the film that hint to the piano. And so a lot of it is sort of just inside company lore, for the fans and for all of us that work on these projects. And so we had brought out the Phoenix Bird, and it's the big grand climax to the film, and I don't think anybody's expecting it. I think most people approach this film like, oh, this is going to be some type of over glorified music video. I don't think they're expecting it to build in the way that it does, but to me that was just staying true to Elton John's music.
Cool. James, the second question, play it forward. What is the message of the movie as you reflect on it now?
When you watch the film, primarily it's about having fun. It's a psychedelic musical fantasy. You're going to listen to great music. You're going to see some amazing eye candy elements. But below the surface, one of the main themes that I was trying to portray, it's something that I've experienced in my own life on a much humbler scale. But it always got me thinking, when you see these magnificent performers like Elton John, or anyone that's an amazing musician or a live performer of some type, the kind of energy that it takes, the buildup to perform to thousands of people flawlessly, and have to worry about, performing on stage, and you've got fog, and you've got confetti, and you've got stage lights, and you've got all these distractions, and you have to pull it off because it's going down in history. And just what kind of an energy climax do you have to have internally, and then what happens afterwards, right? That's really the point that I wanted to drive home. If you actually watch the film all the way through to the end of the credits, there's a post-scene clip that sort of ties it all together. And what I wanted to explore is what are those moments that, you have to put on a happy face, you have to smiley glad hand your way up to the show, you have to put on an amazing performance, and then at the end of the day, the concert's over and you're alone in your dressing room listening to the static hum of the lights, thinking about this huge energy build up, and then there's just got to be some type of crash, right? And that's got to be just so hard and difficult for a performer, and that's got to be something that they have to master early on in their career, or it's just that kind of energy destroys them. And I think it all harkens back to the idea that fame is hard, and for people that are really good at it, that's work.
Yeah.
It's all work and it's all effort on their part.
Yeah. Yeah. And a high level of maturity to be able to handle it.
Yeah, because of course there's always that early stage where, they're doing drugs and alcohol and partying and groupies and everything in between, right? And it's like, that can't last forever. And, we look at all of our aged rock stars of today, they all sort of had to go through that journey and find their self center. And
Yeah.
so, I really tried to inlay all of those themes between the lines in my film so that you're still having fun.
Cool. Thanks, James. Well said. Last question is, since making the movie, how have you been changed as a person?
Well, I think it actually relates a lot to your last question. When I started making this film, I thought that I had respect for musicians and live performers of any type. But for me personally, the energy and the work that it took just to emulate Elton John for 20 minutes of screen time was incredibly taxing. And so I put that in perspective to someone like Elton John that's now, in his mid 70s, and he's still going out there and performing to thousands and thousands of people for maybe 3 or 4 hours at a time, virtually flawless performances. Just boy, I really got to hand it to these people, just the effort and the skill and the talent that it takes to do that. I was really trying to portray that in my film as well and try to capture that sort of magic for them.
Awesome. All right, James Storm, filmmaker. Thank you so much for being on Play It Forward. It's a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate being here. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again sometime soon.
That'd be great. All right, let's make it happen. All right, take care, James.
Can I say that last line again?
Yeah, sure, man.
Yeah, edit that last out, man. Oh, thank you, Costi. It's been more than a pleasure being invited to be a part of this. Thank you.
James Storm, professional and perfectionist. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Till next time. Bye, everybody.